Hey team, Richard Tubb here for a very special Bonusode episode of Tubb Talk, the podcast for managed service providers. And today we are live and in colour, living colour from Berlin, Germany for the big Pax8 Beyond EMEA conference. And I'm joined today by an old friend, the Corporate Vice President of Community and Ecosystems for Pax8, Rob Ray. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you.
Wonderful to see you here. We have been at a lot of these events over the years, sat down and had conversations. This one feels special though. The first time Pax8 have come to Europe, you and your team have put an awful lot of effort into it. So tell us first of all about what it feels like to bring Pax8 Beyond to Europe.
Yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Because this is, of course, it's a journey. You can't just kind of walk into Europe and say, hey, we're here, let's do an event. So it's something that, we've been talking about since I joined Pax8 almost a couple of years ago. And it's something that we've wanted to do. And it's nice to finally be here. It's nice to finally get it done. And even better, it's nice to see the momentum. It's nice to see that the actual partners are enjoying it. We put a lot of effort into it, and there's a lot of these events, and a lot of these events, at the end of the day, it's all about education and connection, but there has to be some more to it in order for it to differentiate from the rest of the events. So A, to bring it here to Europe, B, for the Europeans to seemingly be enjoying it. We're only 3/4 of the way through right now, but seemingly enjoying it. They're already signing up for next year. I would suggest that we're happy that we believe that we've been successful here and want to continue to do it and grow it.
Yeah. So I heard rave reviews from the European MSPs who attended Pax8 Beyond in Denver the first year that you did it, and again this year. What led to the decision to bring this flagship event to Europe then? You felt like there was enough demand here for it?
I think so. If you look at Pax8, like the growth within our European business has been significant.
Yeah.
Obviously, it is a market that you can't ignore. You have to come in. You have to invest in it. And for an organization, a European organization, especially when we, in the MSP space, we deal predominantly with small, medium businesses. Things catch on fire, so you can't be out of the office for too long. You need to be close to your end users. There's always more work that can be done. For you to stop and travel across to another continent in a completely different time zone and to kind of walk away from your business for 3-4 days is hard.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much you've invested, say, into that vendor or how much you want to potentially go to this event. It's hard to do that, right? So for us to be able to bring it here, it gives us access to just more partners that didn't want to necessarily make that journey, and hopefully show them enough value that they'll maybe want to make that journey in the future, or again, just come and join us in Europe. So I think bringing it closer to the MSPs allows us access to more MSPs.
Yeah, and I speak from experience here. You've been in the industry a long time as well. It's a huge investment of time and money to come to these events. And forgive me if I'm sort of putting you on the spot here, but I've been quite outspoken recently about saying, actually, the MSP events industry is in danger of collapsing under its own weight because there's too many average events that don't provide the ROI for MSPs. There's way too many events on the calendar that clash with one another, and we need. What I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from the people who are attending Pax8 Beyond and Beyond EMEA is you're setting the bar at a new high here. So the educational content that you've got, the speakers that you've got, just the presentation. Yeah. I mean, it's got Rob Ray's fingerprints all over it, which is, you know what you're doing here. But what's your thoughts on the events industry as a whole and what you're trying to do with Beyond? Is this a conscious decision to try and raise the bar?
Yeah, it's a good question because I do have roles outside of being on stage at Beyond and introducing people. So I do own the event strategy for Pax8, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we've been at this for a number of years. I've just been talking about it here. We used to make this joke that IT Nation, which is the ConnectWise event, that's the last one that happened in the calendar year. That was usually like the first or second week of November, and then we would all say goodbye to each other for the holidays. January, February, we wouldn't see each other because you're deep into the winter months, and then things would ramp up again in March. That's not the case anymore. There are shows all the way through to December 20th and then right back on January 2nd. So, even throughout the summer months where a lot of us, take vacation, there's still a plethora of events through July, August, those types of areas. So, for MSPs, that's a lot of choice, which is good. For vendors, it's a lot of spend because you want to sponsor these things. But a lot of times we're going into this not even knowing what to expect, how many people are going to come, what's the quality going to be like. I don't think you're wrong. I think that we will ultimately see certain events just go away. And that's ultimately because they're not providing the value. They're not providing the education. They're not providing the opportunity to connect people enough. And you're right. It's a significant investment. I do think though that through this, as a result of all these events kind of coming up and being customized towards MSP, it's a reflection of two very positive things. Number one is that everybody's elevating their game. You have to have a better experience for the MSP. It can't just be sit in a boardroom and learn something new. It has to be sit in a boardroom, learn something new again and again and again.
Exactly.
And then you need to learn about this new tech, and then you need to be able to engage with your peers, and then you also need to have a little bit of fun. And, so it has to be a whole bunch of things that kind of factor into these events. So I think the quality of the events is going to get better as a result of that. But at the same time, I think it's also a reflection of how much tech we actually have. Like, how much growth has there been in the MSP space? You and I go to a lot of events, and it's not uncommon for me these days to walk into an event and find vendors I have never heard of before, or even technology I've never heard of before. We're also seeing a lot of enterprise vendors that are coming into the SMB, MSP, SME space. And you see it here with CrowdStrike's here, SentinelOne is here, Microsoft, they're all on stage talking about what traditionally was an enterprise class technology for MSPs now. And so that's more money that's coming in, that's more investment, it's higher quality of stuff that's coming in. So, there's, I think you're right from the perspective that things are going to level out. But I think that what we're going to find is that once things level out, the quality will be much higher than what we've been used to in the last 15 years in this space.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. And as I said, you and I have done this for a long time. This is a fairly immature industry still, embryonic industry and that. And we're starting to see the professionalism creep in. We're starting to see the standards go up, which is good for everybody. But you're at the front of that charge of what you're doing here. And I've got to say, the quality of the venue as well.
Yes.
It's been phenomenal with the Intercontinental, the IHG in Berlin. Staff have been absolutely wonderful. Yeah. The food has been great as well.
Which is shocking, right? For a conference.
People at home listening to this while out walking the dog, and they're like, why am I listening to a podcast about food at an MSP event? But if you've ever attended an MSP event, the food is mid. Yeah. It is carb heavy and that, and the food here has been great. Yes. So kudos for you. It's got your fingerprints all over it. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's just not just me. There's a phenomenal team behind it, of course.
Yeah. Changing subjects a little bit. So you speak to thousands of MSPs every year. I've been in the room when you've had conversations with someone before, and I hear you use this phrase a lot. How's business?
Yes.
You say to them, how's business? So how are the MSPs at Pax8 Beyond EMEA responding to that question to you? How's business?
It's actually fairly consistent. It's not just the ones that I'm talking about here, like Pax8 partners here at our event. It literally is it's a question I love to start with because, obviously if we've developed a personal relationship, met before, we're going to catch up a little bit, but ultimately I want to know and try to keep a pulse on what's going on in the MSP space. But, outside of like our event, yes, but even all the other MSP events that I go to, and I do talk about this a lot, I ask the question, how's business? And resoundingly, the answer is it's actually really good.
Yeah.
The issues that we were dealing with, let's say 10 years ago, which was when we were first trying to get SMBs to outsource IT, that kind of stuff, that was difficult. The conversations, or, we hit a couple of recessions over the course of the time that we've been in this. We obviously went through the pandemic through the course of this, of our journey here in the MSP space. So there's always been challenges. Like one of my end users went out of business. One of my end users got eaten up by an enterprise company, something along those lines. We're not seeing that anymore. Or if we are, there's always more than enough business that's kind of supplementing it or coming in. The standard response I'm getting these days is business is pretty good. The issue now is scalability of these businesses. And, even if you look at the vendors that serve the MSP market, it's a very similar issue where, we deal with scalability issues of making sure there's enough support, making sure that we're paying attention, making sure you don't get too large, that you stop focusing on, where we came from and what we're doing. So, there's a lot of that's actually happening between, when you look at the MSP specifically, between more outsourced small business coming to the channel, the understanding of the value of what the channel is doing for these businesses, co-managed, like going up market to mid market, even large market, and then just even the technology innovation. Like it's a great time to be an MSP.
Your breadth of knowledge of managed services is mind-blowing. It sounds as though I'm stalking you, my friend, but when I'm in the room, when I see high achievers, and you are a very high achiever, I like to observe what people are doing, what they're saying, to learn from you. And I've learned an awful lot from you over the years. I don't think there's a subject that you can't speak to. And I'm not going to put you on the spot to try and find out. But how does Rob Ray keep that knowledge current?
Oh, that's interesting. It's getting harder. There's no doubt about it because of things changing. And by the way, you don't have to stand behind the plant. You can come out from behind the plant and being, engage in those conversations.
I'll do that next time instead of just hiding there peering through at you.
It's hard, but you have to be, and for me, you have to be a student of the game, right? You got to come out and you got to talk to people, and you have to ask. When I talk to MSPs, you're right, I do ask the question, how's business? But a lot of times they'll say, hey, we've been at this event for a couple of days. What's the most interesting technology you've seen? Or what's the most interesting vendor that you've seen here? And a lot of times there's some consistency. TrueGrid is an example here at this particular event. TrueGrid seems to be getting a ton of leads from this base, and everybody's like, wow, this is kind of cool. So then that's your opportunity to kind of go dig in and find out what it is that they're actually doing. Why do MSPs find it interesting? Who are the competitors that they have? And then we can start talking about, on a greater scale of where that fits into the MSP stack. So I think it's a combination of, first of all, getting the actual people who know what they're doing, which are the MSPs, getting knowledge from them, but getting it on a wider base, because I do talk to MSPs from all over the world, so that I've got a better, kind of pulse of it. It's very basic as far as what I know, but it is at least a little more widespread that I can say, you know what, I'm seeing this over here, I'm seeing this over here, validate it through a couple other marks and say, this is a trend that I'm starting to see here. So that's kind of where it all kind of comes from.
And especially to the vendors, what you just said as well. I've been down in the vendor hall over the last couple of days recording videos. One of the things I try to do is shine a light on the positive disruptors in this space. I'm not going to say the underdogs, but the people who are coming up and changing the industry for the better. And the vendor hall at Pax8 Beyond EMEA is just full of those guys. There's people in the room there with products and solutions that I'd never heard of. They have conversations, and it's like, wow, this is really interesting. So the Pax8 vendor marketplace, I know you've got probably 1,000+ vendors waiting, to sort of get into that marketplace. How do you, Rob, have any input into like the criteria for the vendors that actually make it onto the Pax8 client marketplace?
Yes and no. I don't have direct correlation or responsibility for it, but obviously what we want to do is be able to bring the technologies that we don't have in our marketplace, be able to bring those technologies, but also bring the technologies that the MSPs are genuinely interested in. Or if we find something that's starting to have a really good trend, bring those technologies in. I think level 2 to this, though, is, and we're going to start thinking along these lines, and you're going to start seeing more from us on these lines. And I don't want it to turn into a sales pitch, but this is where we're thinking, where we brought in a chief trust security officer, Rob Reck, and who we introduced him to the audience a couple of days ago. It's going to be now at the point where Rob is looking at the technologies that want into the marketplace, and he is going to do this kind of third-party assessment. Have they done the proper certifications, ISO training, whatever it is, in order to make sure that we can actually go to our partners and go, hey, we're not just throwing any junk that comes to us and is willing to give us some margin onto the marketplace. Like, we legit have vetted it out. They have an MSP program. They have jumped through the proper hoops to do the security part of this, the safety part of this, and take some of that responsibility into the journey as well. So, I think that there's it's multifactored. It's not just as simple as, hey, here's the hottest new thing, let's bring it on. Yeah. Because that would be easy.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, our market's growing. There's more vendors than ever before. There's vendors that are popping up from all over the world trying to do this, especially cybersecurity, AI, that, we need to a little more kind of diligence on what it is that we're actually bringing to market.
Yeah, because you're lending your name to it as well.
Correct.
And you are a curator of great content and a filter that MSPs look to you to deliver the best option to them. So yeah, that makes sense. Changing tact, I'm conscious of time here. Rob, you're a very busy man, lots going on, but I've got to ask the question. This year's keynote speaker, Pax8 Beyond EMEA, is Olympic legend Carl Lewis. Holy cow. First of all, you book the best speakers. I know you've met a ton of celebrity speakers over the years. But I've got to know, as a friend, do you still geek out when you meet these celebrities?
Good question. So there's kind of two ways to do this. Like, and I'll share with you. I won't give you the name or the company name, but there's a CMO, chief marketing officer in our space. He's not in our space anymore, but he used to just go and hire people that he wanted to meet,
Right.
which was how he went and does these keynotes. When I find a keynote, I actually go and try to find somebody that is. You look at the MSP space. We're entrepreneurs. We're nerds. We are, we want to see people that are kind of going to add value to us. You can nerd out over a celebrity or something along those lines. I've never really done that. I don't really care. I have people that I'm more attracted to because they've got a great story or something along those lines. But that's me. I wanted something that's more for the greater whole. I've never been an entrepreneur. I probably never will. I've never been an MSP, and technically I'm not savvy whatsoever, but I do know what MSP is like. So, it's a good question because a lot of times when I pick these people, it's more for my greater audience than it is for myself. Yeah. Carl Lewis, first of all, he's been a friend of Pax8 for a while. There's a connection between our ownership and his family. And I'm not a fan of generally bringing athletes into as a keynote. Okay. Reason being is a lot of us don't care, or you're such a homer for your own teams that you could care less about somebody on another team, or you just don't watch sports. And then again, what's the value of what it is that they're going to talk about? So I was surprised when Carl Lewis was on the list of potential speakers, and our European team was like, "Oh, that is the person," because I've discovered that Europeans watch track and field like Americans watch football. So I'm glad that everybody's excited about him. I'm excited, but he's genuinely just a very nice human being as well, and he does have a great story. But not somebody I typically find, but I'm glad that this has all worked out. Yeah. But have I ever geeked out about anybody in particular? Mark Roberts was a phenomenal keynote. I don't know if you had a chance to see him one year that we did that. You don't get a chance to see him too often. And, he appeals more to the next generation, our kids' generation, but crazy interesting just on some of the ways in which he thinks about technology and engineering. Robert Herjavec has been a phenomenal addition as well because he actually understands the MSP space, being an MSSP himself, or former MSSP now. Plus, he's just got a genuine interest in what we do in our space. So, you meet these interesting people, and it's not necessarily the big brand names that you expect that have been great. I mean, we had Richard Branson one year. It was nice to see him on stage. It was nice to hear his message, but I probably wouldn't do it again. That kind of thing. So. Yeah.
And just because somebody's a big celebrity or wildly successful in business does not make them, as we found out, a great keynote speaker.
That's very true too. Very true.
No names mentioned there, but there we go. Talking events, I saw you a few months ago in Atlanta, Georgia for CompTIA's big ChannelCon event. You're on the board of directors for CompTIA. You're a strong supporter of both CompTIA and the managed service provider community as a whole, or the different communities that are out there. I call CompTIA one of the best kept secrets in our industry. There's going to be people listening to this and go, who are CompTIA? I'd encourage you to check out some of our previous episodes talking about who CompTIA are and why they benefit your MSP. How do you ensure that the Pax8 community benefits from exposure to the wider global managed service community, CompTIA and others like Tech Tribe, we give a shout out to, and others of that nature? Yeah.
You got to be involved. You got to be involved in these communities. And, from that perspective, it does mean, sometimes sponsoring their events. It means inviting them to your events. You'll see CompTIA actually has a booth here at our event. That's by design, because they're slowly expanding more and more into the European market. We want to give them that exposure and work with them on these things. So, I agree with you. Tech Tribe, phenomenal, association. NASCI's phenomenal association. Like, we're all trying to work with these organizations, these peer groups, go to where MSPs are. So it's getting involved. It's being involved. It's not just sponsorship dollars, but it's actually listening to those communities and being present. I get tagged a lot online in these groups, in these chats, which I'm super fine with. I actually prefer it that way because, if something is falling apart, I want to know about it. If somebody's talking about the organization and frustrated, I want to know about it, which I find is another way to constantly stay involved. But as a vendor, you need to respond to it. You have to be involved. You have to be active. You have to be positive. You have to want movement and change. You have to just be a good part of this community and help everybody grow. And we see that with a lot of individuals throughout our space where it's just give, right? And I think as long as we continue to do that, this whole community will win. And I think it helps everybody, and it doesn't matter where you work or what it is that you're doing. If we all work together and share what we know and where we're going, everybody wins.
Yeah.
It's just given, thou shalt receive.
Absolutely. And a public thank you to me, talking of CompTIA. I think it was a couple of years ago. I was in Las Vegas and I got up on stage and talked about mental health quite openly. CompTIA invited me to do that. And there was you and other friends in the room that I've known probably 20 years or so and perhaps didn't know that sort of side of me. And I shared. You were one of the first people I know to sort of reach out to me afterwards and say, thank you, appreciate that. So, and yesterday, you invited our great friend Paul Croker to go on stage with Daniel Skip from Pax8 and talk about his mental health challenges. So thank you for, first of all, as a friend, for supporting me in that situation. It meant a great deal to come off having bared my soul and for people like you to reach out and say thank you. And thank you for giving that diversity and shining a light on mental health in the Pax8 Beyond agenda as well. So really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I think, it's something that's important. I personally don't struggle as much as some other individuals that I've heard, but at the same time, I guess maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's my upbringing. These are things that are just not talked about.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's considered a weakness, or somebody's going to leverage it against you or something along those lines. So I personally struggle with the idea of talking about this openly. And then you're absolutely right. That session for me was just absolutely mind-blowing, opened my mind to a whole different way of thinking about this. Because, when people start talking about these things, as much as you're afraid that it might come across as a weakness, that's not what happens in our community.
Definitely.
People rally around it. And that's where I came out of that session just going, wow, we should do more around this, because I think it is significant. And I think a lot of us, struggle with these types of things. And as a community, we can get through these types of things.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
So I think if we have the stage and the venue and the spotlight to be able to do this, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? It's only recently, within the last 10 years, we started talking about women in tech. Why aren't we talking about this as well? And I think you're going to see more and more of this. And I encourage everybody to kind of get, or at least be a little more open-minded towards being involved and being present in those things. Because for me, it was pretty life-changing, actually.
Yeah.
I would put it under life-changing category.
Goodness. Well, I know from being in the room, there's yourself and others who, like I said, I've known 20 odd years, who probably feel as though they know me to a degree.
Yeah.
And I had friends coming up to me afterwards and were like, I had no idea.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
you could do a pin drop. So, but thank you, CompTIA. Thank you, Rob, for highlighting. And Paul Croker did a phenomenal job yesterday. So I was one of the first to go to Paul afterwards and say, thank you for doing that, because it's going to impact people in the audience.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I guess the more we talk about it, the better things will be overall, right?
Our time is limited today because you, Rob Ray, are the face of Pax8 Beyond EMEA. You are a European celebrity in your own right now. So much more I wanted to speak to you about. So would you do me the big honor and the favor of coming back as a guest on Tub Talk, perhaps later on this year without time constraints, and we can talk to you?
Anytime. I always enjoy our time together, so anytime.
I know the audience want to hear more about Rob Ray, what makes you tick, how you achieved your level. You're laughing at it, my friend, but you are very well respected. You're a high achiever, and people want to know more about you. So thank you. We will do that episode before the end of this year as well. But in the meantime, if anyone listening wants to continue the conversation with you, we've already talked about how they can catch you in different communities now, but what's the best place for them to find you online?
Online, LinkedIn probably is best. I'm also on Facebook. I'm very open with it's more of a work related Facebook account. So don't hesitate to connect with me over there. Other than that, my email address is rrae@pax8.com. But don't hesitate to reach out if anybody needs anything ever.
Thank you. And we've got a few hours of Pax8 Beyond EMEA left. We've got the party tonight.
Yes.
What can we expect, man?
It's, what, we So we've talked about this event, right? We talked about how education learning is all important. The event experience is important, making sure that you're entertained as well. But at the same time, just let loose and have a little bit of fun. We're all together. We're all part of the same community. We're all friends. Why can't we just let our hair down if we had?
Well, you and I are perhaps more follically challenged than others.
Let's let our chest hair down. And so we always do a big party at the end of it because we want to celebrate the channel, right? We want to celebrate what we've done. So we've got food, music, and a special guest. As always, I always try to keep a special guest in there, a little bit of a surprise. So.
Yeah. Well, if you, dear listener, want to know who that special guest is, we will include, obviously this episode will go out after the party's taken place, and there'll be a few sore heads, I'm sure, but we will get the blog post up containing links to everything Rob and I have spoke about today, all his contact details, and some photographs from the party.
Awesome.
But probably only the ones that we can share for public
It never, as much as we like to party, it never gets that crazy, at least not that I'm aware of. But
Rob, it's been an honor speaking to you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, mate.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Hey folks, Richard here. Thanks for listening today. I know you've got a ton of options for who you listen to nowadays, so I really appreciate your support. Do you have any feedback on this episode? Ideas for future guests? Tweet me at Tubblog using the hashtag TubTalk. I respond to every tweet and really appreciate your feedback.